everybody. Thanks for coming. It's 7:07, so we're 7 minutes late. No refunds. Thank you all for coming. This is my very first budget town hall discussion. We're going to kind of go over the upcoming budget that we're all going to be deliberating next week, as well as what has happened in the past. But first of all, I'd like to have a big thanks to my incredible team here that's helped me put this together. We've got Patrick Pauly over here. He's our community liaison. Most of you guys in the ward might know if you've seen a new flashing beacon or a sidewalk or a stop sign or lights, or you've got a problem in the city, your grass isn't cut. Patrick gets on it and gets it done, and he's just a wonderful asset. I've got Chad Barber up at the top there. I think he's been working in the office in City Hall for a lot of years. He knows where all the bodies are buried. It's a joke. Chad, doing low, if you phone in and you write an email, or you phone in, he'll be the guy that gets back to you immediately. We have a rule in our office is that if you make a phone call or you write an email, it gets returned immediately. I think that's very, very important. We don't see a lot of that happen at City Hall. We actually, there's a joke there that was, one person came up to Dwayne and says, hey, you gotta wait a week. People are gonna start expecting you to get back to them so quick. But again, I think that's just as important as part of my job as your council to make sure that happens. Mike has Stove down here. He was a volunteer help knocking doors. He's still, well, we've got him on a $100 a month salary right now, but he's worth every penny. And we got Alice Marchand coming to the door here. She's also doesn't get paid, but she's what I call my first basis spiritual advisor. She works over at Sobeys right over here. Many of you guys know she's the most favorite person to go through for her tells. So thank you and everybody else for coming. Like I said, I am Dan McLean. I have been your city councilor for 3 years now. It's been a profound honor. I just enjoy it immensely, getting things done. I've lived here for a long time. We're going to go over the budget. We just talked about numbers. So a bit about myself. Before I decided to get into politics, I had an acreage over here by Silverado, when Silverado wasn't even there, it was just fields. And we had a bunch of land, and I took a small company selling golf carts. They're one of the largest golf cart distributorships across Western Canada. I learned a thing or two about business. Within 10 years, we grew really big, and then I learned that you don't spend money too fast or expand too quickly, because you got to put away for a rainy day. The economy can change. And that happened in 2008, 9, 10. We saw lots of financial pressures and markets crash. But like many of you that run your own household budgets or you run businesses yourselves, every dollar is important. You learn a thing or two along the way. And what I found is that I always like to bring that business experience to City Hall, because now we're talking about a corporation that is almost $6 billion annual budget. It is a corporation. The city of Calgary does not work like a provincial or federal government. It's a business. And there's 14 councillors and a mayor. And you collect your tax dollars and your utility bills, and we're responsible for a lot of your energy and your roads and whatnot. But we are the stewards of the public purse. And I think we have to be very, very careful with how we spend that money. And there is a bit, I'll say off the bat, of a culture of tax and spend out of City Hall, but I'll get into that later. For now, what I'll do is move right into the presentation. Tax issues. That is our number one issue we hear from everybody in my ward. There's a lot of different top of the mind issues with public safety and transit and whatnot, but this is number one from all of our polling, and especially Ward 13, and are we getting better services for all the additional taxes that we're paying? Here's where we've been. So 2016, there was a 7.8% tax increase, and as you can see, every year, there's been one on top of that until you get into 2021, an election year. Surprise, there was no tax increase. That's when I got elected. And then since then, we've had 3 consecutive tax increases. What a lot of people, what you'll see in your bill when they say it's a 5 or 6% tax increase, it's going to be $20 or $30 more a month. What I think you guys all figured out, but that's cumulative. That's on top and on top and on top. So when they give you 8%, and then the next year another 8%, I mean it's on top, and it all adds up to the point where people have said that their tax bills over the last 10 years. I've heard some huge numbers, but again, a lot of times it's easier to sell to maybe councillors that when you vote on things, it's only $5 a month or $10 a month, $20 a month. It all adds up. like I said, that's our last 3 budgets. Each year we adjust the budget, so I'm going to largely reference, to start off the presentation, the budget adjustments of last year, or this year, and then what 2025 is going to look like, and that's what council will be deliberating next week. We'll put up a graph afterwards, but all next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're going to be talking about different asks from different departments, police and fire, and then different councilors will make their amendments and say, here's what I think should be added, which is usually what happens. I'll be putting forth things that I think should be cut. So, here we are, 23 to 24, here's the increase in your tax on average. The average single family home rose by 6.6%. Condos and high rises are even getting hit harder. There's a massive push to densify a lot of different areas, which is good. We need more homes. But again, sometimes it's the revenue, even some the apartments and your condos, these people sometimes are maybe the least likely to afford huge tax increases. But they say on average that the municipal taxes year-over-year change is 9.91% for your average residential home. Now here's a bit of our operating revenue. You can see in this chart, last year with the revised budget, our revenue increased nearly $500 million, $500 million. I asked that question when we were deliberating council last year. I said, what did we take in last year, and what are we going to take in this year? And it was $500 million. In 1 year, increase in revenue. And I've said this over and over again, we have a spending problem. We've got lots of money coming in, it's how we're spending it. So where's it all going? You can look at this chart, look at the little red pointer thing. I don't think it's going to make it's going to work. But we increased spending on affordable housing is a big one. We talked with lots in the lobby about this. Some people call it taxpayer subsidized housing, but 462% is increased, or by nearly $100 million. So one of the key goals of this new spending is to support partners in building housing for equity-deserving populations, which is good. I'm okay, we've got to build homes, we have to take care of everybody, but what I'm going to focus on is where our priorities are and how much we should be spending on each department. Because as you can see, we spent $88 million on community strategies, and a lot of these do a lot of good work. I won't go into each one of these community strategies, but you can see it says we work for Calgarians to create equitable outcomes, particularly those experiencing vulnerabilities, and advancing strategies that improve social inclusion, reduce poverty, enhance safety, address mental health challenges, and remove systemic racism. Again, all important things. There's a lot of overlap here though. There's provincial governments that take care of a lot of these things and federal government that take care of a lot of these things. So, and departments that seem to overlap, that have the same mission goals. So I want all these things that are important to happen. Again, how do we spend our money wisely? How do we have our partners, our provincial, federal partners to pick up their share? Bottom line, you'll see fire and emergency services. They've got an increase as well. It is our biggest line item because it's the most important. But the increase on that was 1.4% compared to, as you can see, the other huge increases in spending. And as many of you know, and I've been fairly vocal on City Council, that safety is one of my primary concerns. Police protect and be able to ride in the transit system, to be able to walk downtown without being able to, have safety issues with social disorder. So that's that chart. Here's another chart about where the revenue spending is gone. The first page is the capital budget. What we spend on infrastructure, roads and water plants. The first one that's been on the line item since I got elected was interchanges between 194th and 210 Ave. If you go down the Cloud Trail, you know which ones I'm talking about. They need interchanges there badly. Silverado is growing out like a weed. We've got new communities of Sirocco, Pine Creek. On the other side, there's Legacy and Walden. And usually when communities build out like this, all the developers that develop that land, they pay a levy to the city to build these infrastructure projects, interchanges and roads, and put the pipes in. This all gets paid for, not supposed to be by you, that's for the developer. And they're supposed to take care of these things. And I've been fighting this with my team for 3 years because that's a priority to me. We've got a lot of people getting in and out of there. The taxes have been collected. To go a little bit off script, my biggest complaint sometimes is where the city will collect levies for one part of the city that's growing and then put it and spend it somewhere else, whether it's downtown airport tunnel and things like that. It's my belief that with the taxes and the levies are collected in an area, they should be spent in the area. The next we've got the 5-8 network, and you can see there's a huge increase in there. That's $16 million. $31 million, well, actually, I add both together. $60 million, now $31 million is recommended for the 5-8 network. There's bike paths and there's bike lanes. Again, things that are helpful, people like them, but I don't use them that often. I don't know. The bike lanes downtown, and my complaint there a lot of times is it just seems to be we're going to build 4 bike lanes. Normally you do like a traffic impact assessment, or you'll actually look at the traffic going through, who's using this, we need to expand more lanes. But there's an ideology where people aren't going to drive cars and we're going to ride bikes. But we live in Canada, and in Calgary we have winters. So I would like to see some of that money taken out of the bike lanes and put into the interchanges and infrastructures in my ward. Next on our chart, where is all the revenue spending gone to? Oh, that's the previous one. There we go. We're back to the, there's a few issues here in the ward that I think people are actually talking about, where we're putting in more housing. We're building and building like crazy, but again, it gets back to the affordable housing. $54 million in this budget is one-time funding, and an additional $90 million to the capital plan. So again, this is where sometimes we have some additional funding from federal partners and provincial, but this is where we really need them to step up. And just don't forget about the average person that's still paying their taxes and how much can we spend on other areas. Again, that's something we'll be debating in the budget, whether that's the right amount or if it should be less. There's another $60 million for improving pavement quality, which is, we've worked on pretty hard on that. We've met with my team, with the roads department. The budget for, you've been seeing all these potholes, nobody likes potholes. It's been a terrible year after year. And the reason why is because what we've seen is that the paving budget has been reduced for actually paving the roads and put it to other places, like bike paths or bike lanes or other departments. They're putting some money back in this budget and the previous budget, which I'm going to support, because we have to make sure we got to fix these potholes. You can't have your cars disappearing into them, like Miguel says, I think that was lost of time. Like I said, I support a lot of these capital expenditure, these projects, but the big one is fixing our roads and our utility pipes. So if you've seen what just happened with the water this winter or this summer, that's unacceptable, to say the least. I'm not here to call out for people's heads to roll. Like councillor say, got a little hyperbolic and people get their feelings hurt. Everybody was put out pretty badly for that. We're going to be finding out answers. We're not just getting a 1-month report from administration. We've hired a team that is now going outside from some of the top executives that deal with water lines and pipelines and oil lines to see why this happened and how we can stop it from happening again. We'll talk a little later on here in my presentation about the utilities, the bills, the utility bill increases, and the capital ask that the city's going to be asking for. So there we go. That's our brief overview of the 2024. This last year, where you've seen your taxes go up 6.5%. I know you've seen, a lot of you have seen your taxes increase by much more than that. I've heard people say it's 10, 20, 30%. Your assessments have a bit to do with that. Obviously, if your housing price of your home went up, then your taxes went up on top of that. Again, it all adds up and up and up. I voted against this budget, not only because that is a massive tax increase in my mind, but the $500 million in additional spending was not being allocated to the priorities that I think it should be, to not only to just my residents, but just the roads, public safety, and parks and public spaces. So here's the 2025 budget that was made public last year. It's several hundred pages. I'm sure you've all read it, right? Okay. Yeah, I was joking about that today with some of my counselors. The budget is extra long and it's extra fine print. It's like they really don't want us to read it. So you got to go through this thing with a fine-tooth comb. Still doing that, but we just have to make sure that we just use our money and our tax dollars correctly. It is another tax and spend budget, and here's what's proposed for the next tax hike for next year. You might have seen this, it's 3.9% for your average single family home. That's assessed at average $700,000. So they say around $2,600 should be your tax hikes. Condominiums, and like I said, multi-residential high-rise have gone up even higher. The non-residential, I won't get into that too deep. That is your businesses, and there's a lot of revenue created from our businesses downtown at the core. And once they got hollowed up with our oil and gas industries, they didn't just leave. I think they kind of got chased away, you know, but I think there's some ridiculous energy policies. But having said that, we need to make sure that the businesses are treated fairly as well. This has a tax shift in there, shifting 1%, or for what we did last year, 1% of the residential taxes went up 1% and went on to and off of the businesses. I fought that. I didn't think that was fair. I represent the businesses, but the residents is number one, and I do not want to see any more shifted from the businesses over to residents. Here we are back into, now this is what I was talking about with your water. Your water bills, the collection and treatment rate increases, stormwater management rate increases, waste and recycling, residential charges. So there's a couple bucks in each one of those bills, and they're predicting that last year that it went up $5, and now it's going to go up another $5 on your bill to pay for. This is what you can expect the city if it passes. In this tax hike, it has nothing to do with the residential property tax. This is not just your water bill. And then on top of that, as you can see, this will be some capital, so I'm actually building things, a water treatment plant, a water distribution network, wastewater treatment plants. The whole list there is $853 million, so you might have heard something about $1 billion of an ask that the city is going to ask to be voted on to borrow $1 billion to fix up our infrastructure and our water systems. Just $1 billion. The problem I have with that is on every one of your water bills right now, your utility bills, you're paying a surcharge on there. You all see it, and it's for upkeep, maintenance, and keeping, what's the word I'm looking for? Of all of our water infrastructure. And it goes into reserves fund that it should be spending all the time to be looking at, see, that pipe's weak, that one's faulty. We've had problems. There have been warning signs. Again, that's where the report's going to come out. But here we are. I'm here to deliver information. Don't shoot the messenger. We'll see how that goes down. That's a lot of money. That would be, and just so you know, then if we do borrow $1 billion and we did all these huge upgrades, someone's got to pay for it, and that will become with an increased water bill. Now this slide got a lot of traction when I posted it on social media, and a lot of criticism from some of the people at City Hall, because this is, to me, is very, very important. It says the priority metrics and advanced performance measurement and reporting. It's council's priority. So we sit behind closed doors a lot, too often, or we'll sit in front and we debate things and we say, what's our strategic direction? What are we going to do? Where are our priorities? And you guys can look at that, and I'll tell you what mine are. You can tell me what yours are, but I look at that at the very, very beginning. And public safety and housing are number one to me. We've seen since COVID are just between our relaxed attitude towards safety, crime, and social disorder. And what we're seeing, not to maybe go too deep in the weeds afterwards, but one of the first things Patrick and I did is we took a tour, a ride along in the transit system. And then we went on a ride along with the police all around town and in my ward. And it's just unacceptable. I've seen a lot of increases ever since then. I've been pushing. We've got a lot more funding, $50 million more for transit officers. I've talked with the province. We got cops from them, some sheriffs from downtown. I was pushing for fare gates. I want to see a system where it actually somebody from downtown can't just hop on a train and come down to Ward 13. A lot of crime happens within 1 mile of all these transit systems, and then they hop on and they head back, or they get stuck and trapped here. This is what we're hearing. This is just reality. They stay here, they miss the train going back, and then I'm not trying to feel like I'm not compassionate, but this is crime, and there should be crackdown on it, and you have to pay a fare when you get on that train. And we heard something 70% fare evasion from some of the transit officers of what we witnessed. And that's what I think a transit gate would actually stop a lot of that fare skipping, and then it pays for itself. But either way, what has happened because of our efforts, they're now instituted a pilot at Chinook, 4 different safety hubs around the city, going into each quadrant, where there will be more policing, more lighting, and just trying to gauge people getting on and off. So we're making progress on that. But to me, that's number one. We want people to move here. I want it to be safe. I want to be able to have a house, and I want to have a good, safe transit system. Downtown revitalization is important, obviously. I mean, how much do we spend on that? Is another thing to be debated, but I mean, it's nice to have a vibrant downtown. It is like the heart or the pulse of the vibrant city. The climate change. I mean, we can have our different initiatives. The very first thing the mayor did, of course, was to claim a climate change emergency. I voted against it. I think there was only 2 of us that did. And then what was worse was an $87 billion climate change action plan that goes out and plans out where we're going to spend all this money over the next 25 years. $87 billion. It passed again, I think, on myself and only a few others voted against it. And they thought it was largely symbolic. But just rest assured, every single thing that we do in this city will have some type of climate plan, or even social equity, or all sorts of different little initiatives, attachments to get your development permit has to be looked through that lens. And again, not that I don't care that these are important things, but how much do we spend on those things rather than, I guess that's what I'm here for, and we'll see questions. What your priorities for? I'm just stating mine, and then you tell me what yours are after. Mid-cycle adjustments, that's going to be, through 2025. We're going to see more spending increases, what you can see in there. It doesn't include any of this next budget, the 3.9% increase, does not include any other initiatives. So, which we've seen every year, certain councilors will say, I want this. Even there's a contentious development permit going on Shawnee Slopes over here with the transitional housing. That was something that Councillor Walcott just added in. No one saw it coming. He says, I want 2 of these put in the city. And so you should give the land away, we'll build them, and no consultation for a lot of people, but these are some things that could be added. We will see. I'm just letting you know that could be added to this. Where I'm looking at here in that line budget that you'll see, and I'll talk about it later, but you got $6 billion in citywide rezoning. You might have heard about a little thing called blanket upzoning this year, got some press. So people aren't happy with that. And it's going through the court system right now, so I can't really say much on it, but I was a strong opponent of that. But we're going to spend $6 million for that. And millions more for equity programs, $30 million on climate programs. The $40 million on corporate inflationary pressures line item is at the very, very top. That's huge. And I want you to remember, when you look at millions, $20 million of extra spending is 1% tax increase, and that's kind of the formula I go by. So every time you say we're going to spend $20 million more, I've got to tax residents of 1 more point. So you've got to add that up. So if 40 million, that's 2 points of our tax increase. Now in this case, a lot of that will be raises, and we do have police and fire that we have to pay, and there are raises and there's different inflationary pressures. So I'm going to have to dig deep in the weeds on a lot of these things. I'm not saying it's all got to be cut, but these are the things I want to look into to reduce, because if I'm going to take your 4% tax increase right now, I've got to find $80 million in savings. So that's kind of, just keep that in mind how it works. Capital. This is a little different. It doesn't affect your taxes as much, but we're still seeing some good capital expenditures that I support, especially, like I said, the pavement quality. The one big one in there you'll see, Let's go back to that. See my little red light works. There it is. 40 million, citywide transit-oriented development, which makes sense. That's where we built. Pierre Polly came in town. He grew up in Shawnee Slopes, Shaughnessy, just over here, and he came to town and did a big, huge commercial saying, here's where we put towers, buy transit. I agree completely. That's for private developers to come in though. We say, here's your land, you buy it off the city, you develop it, we'll collect taxes off us. What this TOD plan is, Calgary, the city of Calgary has a subsidiary, a corporation called Calgary Municipal Land Corporation, that does a lot of good work. They built East Village, and they're doing lots of different things down in Victoria Park, developing in places where private development it might shy away from, mainly because East Village was, nobody wanted to invest there with all this crime and social disorder. Now they want to expand and actually turn it into a business and look at all the transit stations and develop the land and get it ready themselves, and for you guys to pay for it to the tune of $40 million. They reduced it down to $20 million because a lot of us have been unhappy about that. But that's $20 million I think we can take out of the budget immediately, because again, this is something the private sector should get into. I'm a big believer in government doing this, in the private sector doing that, and as much as we can move over and get out of the way, then the quicker things get done. And I've seen that with well, thank you. Okay, we're almost done here. Here's our bid set with the new expenditures. Our net spending increase for 2024 and 25 is projected at $606 million. Remember the last time it was 500. It's even getting higher. So we're going to spend another $606 million. Revenue $533 million. Don't you think we could make those things balance? You know, if you're going to take it spend $600 million. Yeah, like again, if you're in a business, you have a balance sheet. You just don't always save. When I run out of money, I don't just go borrow or go to somebody else and say, give me the money. That's you guys. You just can't. It's not an endless bucket of money. For all the full budget details, like I said, you can go on our website and you can look at that multi-100-page report and put your reading glasses on. Or don't. Just take my word for it. This is your Cole's notes. There's kind of where I'll end up with. Well, where would I make the cuts? Like I said, the $48 million in inflationary spending. The budget's already grown by $600 million. Like we should have anticipated, I guess, a lot of where inflation is going. We can only keep using and beating that horse for so long. So I think there's money to be saved there. The $10 million clean energy improvement program that is going to go up to $20 million. Again, these are all just different subsidies, and $10 million. $30 million for climate and environmental management. We all care about the planet. Let's be clear of that. I want clean water. I want clean, nice, clean, breathable air. But the last I looked at, there's a charter, the Municipal Government Act, and it tells you what cities are responsible for. Police, fire, potholes, roads, these things, and provinces up to the hospitals and the schools. But there's nowhere in there to say that I'm supposed to save the planet. And I don't think we can with a municipal budget. There's just things we can do. So maybe we can look at $30 million there. The $4 million for rezoning. Again, I'm not with the blanket rezoning. That's going to the courts, like I said. But even then, we have what's called local area plans, where the city goes through every different community, and they say, here's where things can go, and here's where we need density, here's where a park goes. I'd like to review that. Equity programs, $20 million to community strategies. These are all these different departments that are just all, a lot of them really do good work, like family services, and they're all, I went through that line item, and I won't go through them all now. We're at 20 million. How many? I think there's 100 and some. I don't know, Chad, could help me with that. How many different partners we have? Again, what I'd like to see there is I want these services to continue helping people in need, but let's collapse it into, instead of maybe 100 organizations, down to 25. Like, there's a lot of these organizations, they overlap on so many different areas, and then you've got a staff of 6, and they've got a staff of 5, and there are some metrics to take them in check, but again, I think there's some savings there. $100 million in subsidized housing, that's a big number. $188 million to increase city planning. Our planning department is out of control.
And useless.
I didn't say that. There's some good people in planning, and I've been working with some really good ones, and other ones that just what you've seen. And the biggest argument I hear from people is they don't listen. So the planning department, and here's what I'll put it through, somebody else told me this, but a lot of it is true. They will go to universities and get their planning degrees, maybe like the one counselor was in New York or in San Francisco or different places that are not Calgary. We have individual needs and different planning. We've got lots of space to grow here. I want to see density in the right places, but we also, I'm a farm boy. I like my spaces, and you want to go to Silverado, go ahead. With these new growth communities, what they do is they build single-family homes here, and then they put medium residential townhouses, and then they put dense residential here. They kind of put them, design it from, and here's a park, and here's a school, and it's all pretty well done. The opponents, and I say, keep going. They're just going to move to Airdrie, or they're going to go to Cochrane or some other cities that are growing up towards us. But there's the other people on council or in planning that just don't want to grow anymore because they call it urban sprawl, and it's going to go up, and nobody's going to drive. You're all going to walk or drive bikes, and we're not going to drive cars. It's a utopian world that I don't think exists, but it's sometimes I think the lens to the planning department, and if you get too many people in there, again, valuable work, we have to have things planned right. And we have a beautiful city. I mean, I'll say that, I shouldn't even say that at the beginning. It's just an incredibly beautiful city. I'd rather live here than anywhere else in the world. We've got great roads, we've got so many great things going for us. So I don't always want to be like the negative guy and say, but let's just see how we can do this a little bit better. Especially, like I said, if the blanket rezoning or some of this the planning decisions, I think we do better if we find some savings. Fleet management, 30 million increase. We've got lots of stuff in our fleet. The only thing that I kind of, to pick up one example, was when I went into the parking garage and we got all these brand new electric Mach-E's or Mustang electric cars for our bylaw enforcement. I said, did you guys need this $100,000 sports car to go around and write tickets? Again, going back to my business experiences, I put miles on my trucks, and to maintain them, we need good stuff that doesn't break down. But again, something we can look into. So in there, that's hundreds of millions of dollars. 100 million of savings would be good, but even 80, if we could find $80 million in savings, we wouldn't have to cut one essential services, and we'd have a 0% tax increase. So that's my goal. And then just to tell you where we're at the very end, here's where we're at. So this is how the budget deliberations work. November 18th is we're going to do the recap. The 19th, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's where we're going to be going through. If you want to tune in, if you have nothing else going on in your life, I always wonder who's tuning in to City Council. I mean, I'm even bored. I'm sitting here, it's my job. There, Lindy does it. But it's actually, sometimes it's some really important issues. This is important, so dial on in, and then the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is when we're going to, I think this is the 19th, the police will come in and they'll talk about their operating budget. That is a huge operating budget. Again, I'm going to segue a little bit off to, I know the biggest complaint out in this area is hawks. They have helicopters flying over all the time. Am I the only one? You like it? Okay, good to hear. I remember that was once, because I went and I asked the chief and everybody else, and they say, every time you see one of them up there, you hear it. It's not a training mission, they're looking for a bad guy. So just so you know. It's a huge line item. If they can find efficiencies, which they did, they want a new shooting range, and there's a hustle back and forth. But sometimes when you push people, they'll dig deep and they'll say, "Oh, here they find 6 million, they find 10 million." So I just want to push everybody. And then we'll have the amendments, and which I will be putting some forward, saying, "Here's what I think should be changed or should be cut," and then we'll vote on these things, and we'll see what comes out. And hopefully by Friday, you'll see where you're at. Predictions are that there's a majority of council that really thinks tax increases aren't that bad, and you're just going to increase your services. I'd be 100% okay with that if you increase your services, but what I've been hearing from people is that the meridians aren't being mowed good enough, the potholes aren't getting filled quick enough, the snow's not being removed, and the police and fire and safety, not bad, we're doing pretty good, but again, I think we can do it on a zero base. So I think that concludes my presentation. Oh, there's rubber slamming it. This is basically needed to letting you guys, tell me what your priorities are. But like I said at the beginning, mine are keeping taxes low, focusing on the essential services, police, fire, roads, waste collection, parks, community cleanliness. And if you guys have anything else, I've talked to a lot of you in the lobby about any concerns, but if anybody has a question, come on up right here and be happy to answer them.